Zahvaljujem ambasadorki Kanade na pozdravnom govoru. Vanja Kovačev je, vidim, već zauzela mesta na sceni zajedno sa ambasadorkom Kanade. Ona će danas razgovarati i saznaćemo nešto više o digitalnim komunikacijama u Kanadi i uticaju IT sektora na ekonomiju Kanade. Vanja, izvolite.
Najlepše hvala. Dobar dan svima. Ne znam da vam radi mikrofon?
Ne. Možda da probate taj drugi.
Ajde, probat ćemo ovaj. Da li radi ovaj?
Da.
Evo, mi ćemo možda to rešiti umeđu vremenu. Kati, your Serbian is so excellent that I don't know, should we follow the scenario or speak Serbian? What do you feel like?
I have to say my preference is in English if it's possible.
I know it's a cliche, but I like, please, people to give a big applause because this Serbian was not only correct. It was grammatically and vocally, and we really enjoyed listening to your Serbian. It's not an easy language. It's we know, you know. So thank you for that effort. You gave us so many interesting information about the facts, about the progress, how things are being organized and planned. But let's give it, let's give a little bit of human touch to this digital story. I think we have at least three things in common. You and I, and maybe a lot of people in this room. We like Canada. We like no, it's not necessary. We like Canada. The presentation by Kati, Čaba, it's going to be on the loop, so you can enjoy maybe while we speak, you can see some facts and figures that were mentioned in Ambassador's speech previously. So, I think we have minimum three things in common. We like Canada. Mm-hmm. You and I, we like Sarajevo.
Yes.
My hometown and your town where you used to work 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. We like Belgrade. That's the third, but we are both digital, are we? Just like everybody in this room in 2018. Are you digital? How digital are you?
Well, if you ask my children, they would say I'm not very digital at all, but I think I'm doing pretty well, to be honest. I use basic tools of communication. My iPad is very important. My mobile phone. Of course, we use computers at work. I have my Fitbit now, which is a great tool for passing my messages, so I can see what's coming in on my phone. But so
yeah, you mentioned that before we joined, before we are here on the stage, that you have a watch that is constantly informing you about the text messages. But these are the private messages.
Yes,
you want to be in touch with your family, so this is the ICT feature that you really enjoy. We both have teenagers. They are not so teenagers, they are Z generation or millennials.
Millennials,
I think. Are they digital? If this is not a rhetoric question.
Absolutely. They're probably too digital for my liking, but I think any of you who have kids know that these days nobody grows up without being completely digitalized.
Now, I think it's more natural this way. Technology. So yes, they are digital, just like everybody. But do you encourage them? Do you just observe their presence on the devices, to put it generically? Because now we have devices like minimum 5 things we hold in our hands every day. How do you feel about that?
Well, as a parent. Now, so interesting. We'll start with the private side before we get to the,
Because
business side. Why not?
You mentioned that this is for the benefit of the citizens.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yeah.
So as a parent, I look at the use of technology by my kids and by young people overall in both as a source of excitement, but also as a great source of stress, to be honest. So it's exciting when I look at how my children are so involved on the digital side. They use their devices constantly. They are so in touch, and considering that I am a diplomat and I move every 2 or 3 or 4 years around the world, my kids are able to stay in touch with their friends that they made in Ethiopia, in Russia, in Ukraine, in Canada, and they're in touch all the time, and that's a great thing. It's also such a natural instinct for my kids when they are looking for information to Google it. You know, you go online, you look up the information. It's very natural. But as a parent, I also have concerns because I worry about things like, are they getting a good night's sleep when they have all these devices in their bedroom? Are they accessing information that's probably quite inappropriate for young people, and how easy is it for them to access that information. I worry about things like cyberbullying. I mean, there are lots of factors that, as a parent, can make us very worried. And I know you're having a session this afternoon at this forum, and I'm sorry I can't be here for that, but I'm sure it'll be an interesting discussion on that.
Yes, about the dangers of internet and everything that's there. Concern is kind of our backbone. We care. Parents are of that kind. There are many benefits. I will just refer to one of your comments. You said they are so connected. They are in touch.
Yes.
Are they in touch? Really? They have many friends all around the world. Do they meet? This is my concern. And then digitalization brought, yes, tangible touch or digital touch.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Well, let me answer that first with an illustration. It's happened to me several times that my kids were sitting in a room with their friends. And they're sitting there and they're all silent and they're all on their devices. And I walk into the room and I say, kids, your friends are here. Why aren't you talking to each other? And they look at me and say, well, we're playing games together, or we're texting each other.
We're on a platform in the same room.
Why can't you just talk to each other face to face if you're in the same room? Why do you have to be on a device? But it seems to be the normal thing. But I do worry that it can actually create alienation too, that people don't feel as connected.
Yeah, we had some data yesterday from PwC that 53% are now spending less time with their normal everyday, I mean, actual friends. But these are the changes, definitely. Serbia, I would say Yugoslavia, has a phenomena that the name of this short interview invented by Robert had some elements of magic, or the magical kingdom of Oz. Canada is kind of like Oz for our technicians, our engineers, who since 1990s have continuously going to Canada. Are there many? Do you maybe have some comments on that?
Well, Canada is very fortunate to benefit from many immigrants over the years from
You are
Serbia.
such a multinational.
We are, and
society,
we do a good job, I can say, of attracting people from around the world to bring their skills and their experience to Canada. So we very much benefit from that. We have a large and an active Serbian diaspora in Canada, and I know that many of the people who have moved to Canada from Serbia or from this region have been able to translate the skills and the experience and the knowledge they have from what they learned here into interesting and well-paying jobs in Canada.
Yeah, for our engineers, it's Canada is like cold Kingdom of Oz that really provided them with a good life, both for them and their families. So that's a great thing.
But I have to say, it works the other way too, in that, as part of our trade and investment links between Canada and Serbia, there are a number of Canadian companies that also recognize the great skills and talents that are available here. And so there are a number of companies in Canada that are actually outsourcing that kind of computer engineering or other kinds of work to experts in Serbia. In fact, we have a number of those companies that are members of our Canada-Serbia Business Association and play a very active role in that two-way transfer of knowledge and skills.
Yes, Kenzie has very good experience or best practices. Even people who worked for a while in Canada came back and started their companies back in Serbia. These are the very good examples. Can you just reiterate the most important facts that you told us a couple of minutes ago? Yes, there are benefits, there are impacts. What are the impacts of the digital industries to Canadian economy?
Well, first, I would say it's actually not as easy as you think to capture that information from a statistical point of view. And our statistics agency this year recognized that this was a bit of a challenge. And so they have undertaken now a reform process where they're going to look into more detailed information on the exact impact of the digital sector on our economy. But I can give you a few trends based on 2016 statistics. So ICT as a share of our gross domestic product of GDP is over 4%. So that's 73 billion Canadian dollars every year. That's part of GDP for ICTs. I mentioned in my opening remarks, 600,000 people are employed in this sector, which is quite considerable. And the thing to note about this is that these are good jobs. These are innovative jobs. These are well-paying, educated jobs. And so
interesting jobs,
interesting,
changing all the time.
Absolutely. So it's great to have people working in that sector, and 30% of our total R&D research and development spending is directed at the ICT sector. So that's, again, it's a big impact there. Another interesting fact about the ICT sector in Canada is that very little work is being done by large companies. So 1.5% of the total number of companies that are engaged in ICT employ more than 100 people.
That's a new trend.
Yep.
We are used to, stories about big companies, big names and big brands. I think that things are changing also in Serbia. We have very good examples of the small companies who are doing very good job.
So 98.5% then are small and medium enterprises that are employing the vast majority of people who are actually working in this sector. We also have, over the years, started to export more and more. So in 2016, of the 11 billion Canadian dollars worth of ICT products that were sold, 80% of that was exported to the US, to the Asia Pacific region, and to the European Union. Yeah.
Were there any challenges? Because this seems like a very serious and maybe not so long-term process, but you most probably, I mean, the government faced some challenges during this.
For sure. I mean, there are a few challenges that I could point to. Some of them are not specific to ICT, but we're a very large country, as you know, second largest country in the world. Vast. With a relatively small population. So 37 million people, plus or minus, in this huge territory. So that has a huge impact on how we build our infrastructure. So in urban centers, we have great infrastructure overall, and people are very connected, and all kinds of systems are in place. When you get out into the rural regions, it's much more challenging. When you think of the territory of Canada and how much it would cost to make internet available in the far north or in.
But how big is the penetration, if you have? It's most probably.
I don't have a statistic in mind, but it's fairly high, but it needs to keep increasing. We're also, as you probably know, a country that is officially bilingual. So all services that are provided by the government of Canada at the federal level need to be in 2 languages, which is a great job. But it also just adds to the complexity of how we deliver on things. And a few years ago, there was a recognition by government and by the private sector that we weren't doing enough, that we were lagging behind our counterparts, the US and other OECD countries. So there was a recognition that the amount of investment in ICT was not enough, and so in the past couple of years there have been major advances in terms of how much money is actually being directed at this sector from the federal government side. We also recognize that domestically we're a small market. Again, we have a fairly small population, so there are limited growth opportunities, so we have to do a better job of exporting. And then third, there was a realization that we didn't quite have the skilled labor force that we needed to really make advances in this sector.
And here comes Serbia.
And here comes Serbia. So on the one hand, domestically, we put a lot of effort into improving our education system to actually build those skills that are being needed. And then, of course, we looked at importing those skills from other countries, including Serbia. So we've done a good job at making good progress, and I can talk more about what some of those specific initiatives are.
It's work in progress, obviously.
Yeah.
And everybody is aware of the fact how important it is. You mentioned, and maybe that can be our last question, that there is a dialogue between the discussion between the government and the citizens how to improve these services. By the way, just a short reference to what Minister said. It's easier today in Serbia. It's very convenient. You don't go with 5 papers and a folder. It's much better than it was, and it's obviously something that it's inevitable, and it's going to be better in time. So what is this dialogue? Maybe we can use your example.
Well, so this year, the minister launched a national consultation on digital and data transformation. And basically what this is, it's a process across the whole country for seeking views from the general population, how they want to see innovation driven going forward, what role they want to see government playing, and how they want to see this sector advancing, because of course, as we were saying earlier, it's very much in their own interest. It's also going to be a platform that I hope will be used by our government to reassure and build confidence amongst the population that the data that is being collected, because of course every day more and more data is being amassed about every one of us and what we do in our day-to-day lives, that data is going to be used carefully, respectfully, that it's going to be well protected. So those are the two broad aims of this consultation. But the idea is that once we have a better feeling for what are the views of the population on how things should be moving forward, that then allows the government to plan and to be able to put in place new initiatives that will continue to drive innovation and the digital economy.
So civil society is strong in Canada?
Yes, absolutely.
You listen to the messages from the civil society, they play an important role?
They do play an important role, absolutely.
Okay. I really want to finish this because I know that there is an agenda and that we would have many more questions. Thank you for being in Serbia. Thank you for supporting Serbia's development, and we look forward to more cooperation with Canadian Embassy.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure to be here this morning, and I also very much look forward to our very good continued cooperation with Serbia. Thank you for having me.